Welcome back to 7 Seconds or More. This is episode 11. We're really in the double digits now. It'll be a while. Again, I think it's like 18 months till we're in triple digits. So very exciting. We're back as always with Duncan Adele. Duncan, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Garrett is not with us again. So we have our resident, Instagram, social media consultant. I couldn't find the words. Dan, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me out here.
The Klay Thompson jersey in the background, very fitting today as we're going to get into obviously a finals preview. But before, there's a lot to really go over in that Wild Game 7. Just to get some of the stuff out of the way that we always talk about, get your mailbag submissions in the link in the description of this and all episodes. Love to answer any questions you guys have. I know we have a couple already. Would like to have more so we can make a longer episode. We're going to try to do some different sort of things in the coming weeks after the finals end. We'll obviously do some draft coverage, and then we might go in some other directions. Might look at, I don't know, like historic games, seasons, deep dives on players, other draft classes. Might do 10 yards or more, 9 innings or more. We'll see.
Might have a little fantasy football special coming up.
Yeah, we might have a little one episode Mason WNBA coverage. As that season heats up over the summer.
Lisa Cunane just got picked up, the NC State center who got dropped by the Seattle Storm. All of Seattle Storm's picks. The Minnesota Lynx.
The Lynx?
Yeah.
Up there with Avina, too.
Yeah, right?
Avina's been playing well, right?
Yeah, she's not been bad. She got a full season contract. She's been pretty solid, getting like anywhere 10 to 20 minutes a game,
Wow.
I might change my allegiance from the Storm to the Lynx just because the Storm is a dog water organization. They put together 4 wins, but like they dropped all of their draft picks. They cut them all. Just weird.
It's I would say like it's a recipe for not success, but I really don't know how they work. There's just not enough roster spots, and the Storm have historically been good in the last 5-10 years. So
yeah,
clearly they're doing something right.
Yeah.
And last thing, just to finish up our intro, all episodes moving forward should be in video and audio form on Spotify. I don't know if you guys knew that Spotify has video form. So yeah, you can watch it there. And then if you want to watch the video form but don't want to use Spotify, use like a different app, those will be available on our YouTube. So our last 2 are available on there. And if you're looking for those, they're available as always at the link in this and all episode descriptions. So let's just get right into it. Game 7. It was a very, very crazy game. Celtics sort of led wire to wire, yet it wasn't a comfortable win for the Celtics. One thing I really wanted to start on was what we thought of the Jimmy Butler shot, at least for me, really based off the momentum the last 2 minutes. I know Miami went on like an 8-0 run. I thought that shot was going in, and I thought it'd be a play I would have in my head forever. And I'd be constantly hearing about like the David Tyree catch. If you're a Patriots fan, Philly special.
That's the worst.
I hate it every time it comes out, just because it's some gimmick play, and now everyone
the worst
tries
part
it.
about it is the Patriots ran that same play in the first half, and now everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Philly, they came up with that." It's like, no, that was the same play.
There's something to be said if you're the one that executes it well, though. So I'll credit it to the Eagles, I guess. For that Butler shot, I will say in a vacuum, I would have been okay if I'm the Celtics with giving him that look, because he sort of settled, because he didn't drive into Horford. Horford was reeling, and so Butler probably would have gone past him. He's a great finisher at the rim using his strength against anyone. He can really draw the contact and then manipulate his body in the air in order to get an and one. And so I thought that was a really high possibility. So honestly, as that shot was in the air, I was preparing for what the Celtics were going to run out of the timeout. Like, were they going to run? Was it going to be a deception play for Tatum? Was it going to be Brown coming off a couple screens going downhill? Would it be a play Brad Stevens used to run where they would get Horford sort of pinned down one-on-one in the post? But then, it didn't go in. Jaylen Brown tips it. Al Horford secures the rebound. And it's sort of over from there. So what do you guys think about it?
Well, I personally, Jimmy Butler played 48 minutes of that game. And He could not handle overtime. I think the possibility of an and one, I don't know, it's against Al Horford, a more disciplined defender, who was a huge part of why the Celtics won that game. I think Jimmy made the right choice. Like, he's hot from three, wide open, game's in your hands, like, no doubt about it, no referee, nothing going on, but just didn't go down. What about you,
Yeah,
Dan?
for me, I mean, if that shot goes down, that's like Peter said, that's just one of the immortalized moments in like the NBA, scheme. But like Peter said, he's great at finishing at the rim, and even though Al Horford's a fantastic defender, I still think um, a guy that's shooting 24% from three over the past 3 seasons, I feel like you have to take advantage of that one-on-one coverage and just go to the rim, see what happens if you get a foul. But I mean, Jimmy's the best player on that Miami Heat team, so I don't fault him for taking that shot. But yeah, I don't know if that was the right decision.
I don't know if Jimmy was also in his head in the last couple minutes before Miami sort of went on that like 8-0 run. Miami or that only brought them close because Boston had extended their lead to around 15, and part of it was Miami could get no looks on offense. They were driving, like Jimmy was going hard to the cup, but Grant Williams had his hands straight up, or Jaylen Brown if he got switched onto him, and either Jimmy was tired or the pressure on him was a lot, and he was missing these 4 or 5 footers. Still tough looks, but they were like off the backboard and didn't hit rim or stuff like that. And so I
Do you
don't
think
know if
that's fatigue?
it very well could have been. Spolster after the game said that the plan wasn't like necessarily to play him 48 minutes, but the way those games go, he's a guy you can trust and you put everything in, so you need to have him out there.
Yeah,
Tatum and Brown each got rest for the Celtics. Tatum at the end of the first quarter, Brown had a couple times throughout the game,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
I
you get a
think it helped.
17-point lead or 18-point lead at the first quarter. I forget exactly how much. Then you better rest your starters.
It's a good point, and they certainly had the cushion to do that. Like we can just get into what Miami was doing in tinkering their rotation a lot through the game. And it really started in the first quarter because it was reported before the game that Tyler Harrow would be Hero. I always mess it up. He'd be available to play after he missed the last 2 games due to a groin injury. And so he comes in the first quarter when Boston is up by like a dozen because Spolstra is just trying to see what works. And he plays a couple
mm-hmm.
minutes, he misses some shots, never really gets going, and you really never see from him again. And what Miami had to do down the stretch, I thought, first of all, it was a great job by Spolstra trying to figure out what would work. But he had a really limited rotation when I thought Miami's depth was great throughout the series. Tucker did, who was great early in the series, beating up on Tatum and sticking on him, was largely ineffective, and Boston really turned him into a one-dimensional player. Oladipo had to play big minutes as Miami downsized to try to score and come back and to have a better perimeter defender because Tucker was ineffective. And but the one thing Oladipo had, he had the athleticism, but he could not hit a shot, whether it was a
Yeah,
layup, which he threw like off the backboard, just real
mm-hmm.
recklessly. His jump shots, if it wasn't a wide open step back over like Peyton Pritchard, wasn't reliable. And he doesn't look 100%. He looks like he'll need some time in the off season. Obviously, a good development for Victor Oladipo becoming like a viable NBA player again.
Yeah.
Um, but I just think Miami ran out of options and didn't have enough guys to trust going down the stretch.
Yeah, I agree with that. It makes me think, you see Joel Embiid on Twitter, and he's talking about like what they need. It reminds me of the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum dynamic. Should we split them up? Should we split them up? Should we split them up? They split them up in Philly, and now neither of them can win a championship. I think, Dan, did you comment that on something? I feel like I saw you comment about that, but like it's just they need another guy in Miami, and Eric,
No, yeah.
yeah, he did a great job with the rotations, but it's tough.
Do you think Lowry's washed up now? Or what do you think about his situation?
I don't think he's washed up, but I think he was the most annoying player to watch in Game 7. Oh my gosh. Just he got every single charge call. Like, yeah, they were charges, but they weren't being called on the other end against Jimmy. And, some of them were questionably blocks, whatever. But he got every single call, and he was so upset the whole game. It was just annoying to watch.
He'll have the most obvious fouls, and then he will be incensed and not know what he did wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing about Larry that it's less on Larry. He wasn't doing anything wrong trying to draw a foul, but
No.
I'm confused on what a charge versus like legal guarding position is nowadays, because I'm okay with the basically the rule being you got to beat the guy to the spot. Your feet don't have to be perfectly down or anything, and that's what the calls end up being. I remember I believe it was like the right side of the court. Um, uh, Brown coming off a screen, running into Lowry. Lowry's like chest and body. He clearly gets to the spot first, but his feet aren't like perfectly down. Celtics, I think they challenged that one and they lost the challenge.
Yeah.
But at other times, you see like a guy trying to take a charge like a foot outside the restricted area, and he's like sliding over, and his foot just isn't quite set yet, and then it's called a blocking foul. There's just not a lot of consistency, and obviously game to game, we see it all the time, ref to ref. There's a reason why you see the update that Scott Foster is reffing the game, and the lines change, and everyone you pull up the stats like, oh, Miami has this record with Scott Foster. I do you think there could be something where you need to have the same refs for like the whole series, so you have some consistency, you learn how a ref calls a game, or just like consistency between the regular season and the playoffs? Because it just seems there's some fouls where like that wouldn't be called in the regular season, and then obviously in a game 7 they were like there was all kinds of reaching fouls. They weren't called because it's a game 7. You gotta play through this. Like there's just no consistency across the board. It's really frustrating, especially with Kyle Lowry.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thought. Like Dan, I wonder what you think about the whole. Was it Max Strus, the three that got taken back?
Oh, the heel.
Yeah, and like his heel wasn't even
Yeah.
that obviously out. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I feel like the refs, they have a hard time making those calls. So I don't. And in those high pressure games, they obviously have the pressure to make the right call, but I feel like the NBA is also like an entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's like scripted in a way to be that way, but
It was just weird, right? Because like it wasn't an obvious, yeah, he's out of bounds, and they had obviously had the chance to review it again and again because they called it like a couple minutes after it happened, and I don't know. I don't want to say that the game was rigged, but it was a 3-point game at the end of the day, or 2-point game, and that three could have meant a lot in that momentum. So it's just kind of weird with all the fouls not being reviewable, and hopefully they change the rule with you retain your challenge on a successful challenge, because like you should be incentivized to challenge every play that the refs obviously get wrong, instead of like saving it for one that they get more wrong than others.
Yeah, and I think it's game 6. I had another like sort of rule come up that I was sort of questioning. I think there was a charge that I forget who took it, like Larry or something, probably in the cylinder as the Celtics were trying to like scrape away some points at the last minute, and it was called like a blocking foul, but they reviewed it because you can review if a guy's in the cylinder in the last like 2 minutes.
Yeah, I remember that.
You can't review some out of bounds calls. Like
mm-hmm.
it's super weird. I really don't get it. Back to what you were talking about though earlier with the Strus shot, Duncan. I was watching like every post game press conference. I was going between all the channels on the TV, waiting to see when Tatum would get to the podium or everything. But I watched some of what Eric Spoelstra had to say. First of all, I have a lot of respect for Eric Spoelstra. He was very, very candid, very respectful towards Boston. But the one thing he was saying is that what was really critical about that Strus overturned play is that they overturned it like 5 or 6 minutes after the shot. And so the context that the team was playing in was completely different.
Yeah.
Because with that 3, they had momentum. I think they were probably down. They were down by like 3 or 5, anywhere from that range. but then all of a sudden they're down by 8. If they knew they were down by 8 that whole time, they might have played a different way. Certainly, if you're down by that, Spoelstra may look at a guy. That's a turnover for Strus. You might want to take him out of the game after that. It's just a lot, and I know they're trying to work as fast as they can in that review and try to have it happen in real time. But if there's a question about it, can't you just stop the game and review it at the time? I guess that wasn't the case. I think they review every 3 probably to see if the feet are behind, and in that case, they saw that the heel was out. But if I were a Heat fan and even a non-biased basketball fan, I'd certainly be a little frustrated and questioning really how that play went. Luckily, it wasn't in like the fourth quarter or crunch time, and then it would have been like a really big deal. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, it was kind of tough to see.
Especially a play like when seeing that review, it wasn't obviously out of bounds. Like from the angle they showed on ESPN, it looked like his heel was above the line. It didn't look like he touched out of bounds. And like, yeah, they took 5, 6 minutes. I feel like at that point you just let it go. You let the game flow. It already happened. Like none of the Celtics fans are gonna like go through the tape and be like, he was out of bounds. He was out of bounds. Like I don't know. I think it just would have been better for the game if they had just not done that.
I do feel like I saw his heel for like the split second. I'd have to go through like frame by frame,
Yeah,
touch.
I only saw one angle of it, and from the angle I saw, it looked like it wasn't touching, but I wish I saw the other side, because
Yeah.
yeah,
I've there's so many times I've seen like a 3 and I'm like, he's got to be out of bounds. But it is amazing what these elite level shooters.
yeah,
Um, I won't call this guy an elite level shooter, but I think Victor Oladipo had a similar play a couple games ago, and they show the replay, and yeah, his heel, like let's say for everyone watching the video, I'm doing a visual demonstration. If like the end of my finger is his heel, they'll be able to move and plant and shoot and fall with their heel up the whole time. It's such like a unique skill, staying on the
yeah,
front of your toes, and then also having being able to know where the line is, and then while you're catching the pass, being able to move the ball in your hand to get it where you want. I know some guys like their fingers on a certain seam of the ball to get the perfect rotation. It's really incredible what they're doing, and we're going to see a lot of that elite level shooting coming up with Golden State.
Yeah, it's gonna be excited for that. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we will. We'll get to a lot of that. One thing I did want to talk about, though, certainly it would have been a different story if Strus had that 3 held. But Boston's really collapsed at the end of the game. We've seen this across a couple of games in the Milwaukee series and now in this Miami series, how Boston struggles to close out a game in the half court, how they can't really get into a good set um, after they drain the clock down. And I think it really would have been a historic collapse. Now, I don't know
yeah,
all of NBA history or Celtics history, but when you're in the position to get your team to the finals after this historic run and after everything and the success that Tatum, Horford, Brown, Smart have had throughout their Celtics tenure, would have been a real blemish on their careers.
Yeah, I mean, to me, just like you guys like tell me what you think, but it running the clock down when your greatest strength all game was the points in transition is not a winning recipe. You know what they were what Al Horford was so good at, and I noticed all game. The second he rebounded, within like 2 seconds of the shot clock, they were like on the 3 point line on the other side of the
yeah,
court. Like he's so quick at rebounding and just dishing the ball out. And when you're slowing down the game, you let Miami get set in their defense. There's no mismatches as you've been running down the court. They've got the coaches on the side, like they're ready for whatever you've got, and
hmm
then you only give yourself like 8 seconds to try to put something together without a real plan. And they weren't running plays. So it was like ISOs or just like,
yeah.
oh, let's see if someone is open. No one's gonna get open when they got a set defense. So if you guys were Ime or whatever, would you have chewed down the clock like that, or would you have continued to push and try to extend the lead?
For me, I think it was a lot of like inexperience, both on the coaching end and the guys on the floor. even though like I don't think experience like directly translates to success because I mean the Celtics have gone through the Bucks, the Nets, the Heat, all these teams with a lot of winners. So I don't think that necessarily translates to it, but I do think that there was like a sort of naivety and just inexperience in general.
It's a lot of situational basketball and what to know what to do in certain scenarios. That's what Golden State is really, really good at. They know what to do in certain situations because they've been there, but they also have a certain type of player that knows how to execute in certain scenarios. Um, and I think there was, to a degree, some bad luck. Like they missed a lot of like bunnies around the rim,
Mm-hmm.
and even so, they got a couple offensive rebounds, and Marcus Smart opened threes, and he couldn't make
Yeah.
those. And then Miami was
Deep
hitting.
open threes.
They were deep. They were really not good shots, but they were open, and he had to take them. And then
Yeah,
Miami hit some great looks. So it's some like good and bad luck on both
yeah.
sides. But Jason Tatum had bailed them out multiple times down the stretch
Oh,
with
with
end
those
of shot
contested
clock
threes.
looks. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the sidestep on the left wing over
The
Jimmy
inbound.
Butler, or
Yeah.
was it over? It was Larry over Larry, I
It was,
think.
I forget.
The left wing, yeah, and then obviously the inbound sort of
you know,
pirouette
over
against
Jimmy.
Jimmy. That was a thing
Beauty.
of beauty.
Oh yeah,
There's a lot of value in having a guy who can bail you out, obviously,
Yeah.
in the end, in a half court setting in a playoff environment. That's why
Hmm.
there's you see the mid range and the ISO numbers go way up in the playoffs because you need to be able to score like that. But if I'm Boston, I wouldn't have a lot of confidence in my end of game scoring, and maybe it helps this matchup against Golden State. It may be less of like a football game, less of a brawl, and everyone getting beat down. But I think they have a lot of questions they need to answer before things get going on Thursday.
Mm.
yeah. Then the other thing I see you have down here, Peter. I'll ask you the question: what happened to Robert Williams? He was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, um, I think he. It's weird looking at like body language. Rob is a guy who it's really interesting to read his body language. He will look very like down and unmotivated at times, but he will get fiery when he gets things going. I think this surgery has been really tough on him because
Mm.
Ime said it for the last like 27 days. They've played like every other day or something like that. And
That's crazy.
as a guy recovering off his left knee surgery and the knee on like a center, someone who's so reliant on his sort of pogo stick jumping
Yeah.
is really important. And it was a real great effort for him by playing those minutes.
Hmm.
But you could tell he was just a shell of himself. He wasn't able to get that extra burst on offensive or defensive rebounds where he's so good at being a putback guy.
Yeah.
When I think of guys who can be able to put the ball back up immediately, him and Zion are the first two I think of.
Yeah.
Just that unreal ability to get the board and get it back up before anyone else even
Yeah.
can like think
Hmm.
about it. It's
The only
insane.
time he doesn't recover is when he gets switched onto the guard and they fake the three. He falls for that every time, and he jumps like out of bounds almost, and they
Yeah.
just run right past it. But other than that, yeah, the man he jumps, they get the pump fake, and then he's back up there to get the block on the second shot.
I would have to look at more tape on that, but I do think there was a degree of he never got anything going, so he's trying to make an impact in any way,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
he's been great at blocking shots in the corner. I forget who did he block in the corner the other game. It was like Strus or Tucker, Larry or something. He comes out of nowhere. He gets a
Yeah. They
tip on the
just
ball.
teleport like for a second they're at the top of the key and then they just zap towards the corner, swat it away. And one thing with
yeah,
Rob, I think, is that he's a guy that for the past couple seasons struggled with fitness, like playing more than 23 to 25 minutes a game was it was a battle for him. But um, yeah, I'm just hoping that he can make some type of more positive impact on the court against the Warriors. And I think he has a good matchup in Kevon Looney, and I think it's going to be a good battle.
I think that matchup will be really interesting. I sort of wrote down. I don't know if they'll be a little more matchup dependent with how they use Rob. trying to find the right scenarios for him to excel. Maybe if they go smaller, if Golden State goes smaller with Draymond at center, you can put him in that situation where you have him flying around the court as a free roamer, let Draymond beat you with his shooting. Sort of similar to how they put him on PJ Tucker and let him be like a free safety running around the court, Rob, that is. And then Looney, you can let Al Horford sort of bang with him down in the post. There could be a scenario where we have a Daniel Tice emergence in the finals. I will say, because depending on how Rob's health and if you need some more spacing on the floor, I think Tice is more than capable in a dribble handoff game, a high-low screen game. He's a great screener with Tatum. They have really good chemistry, and he's generally a guy who knows what to do out there. He's like a capable player. So I'd love to see Daniel Tice, the German Hammer, have
German
an appearance.
Hammer.
Like 5 to 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, if Rob or Al gets in foul trouble, they need someone to throw out there for a couple minutes. Daniel Tice is a capable guy. I mean, they gave up Dennis Schroeder to get him, and Enes Freedom. So that's some big names. They need someone to fill those holes.
Oh, you see Dennis's
Tattoo?
Instagram story? Yeah, he had the Celtics tattoo. Does he get a ring if they win?
Yeah, he'd get a ring.
Oh, yeah. That's
He'd get a ring.
Celtics forever.
Enes Freedom would get a ring. Josh Richardson.
Straight to the rafters.
Good for Josh Richardson.
The ISO Joe would get a ring.
Oh, wow.
Nick Stauskas.
Oh, Sauce Castillo, of course. Malik Fitz. He'd get a really, really big ring. Really big contributor. Luke Cornett. It'd be incredible.
I mean, he's on the team, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so is Malik Fitz and Nick Stauskas. They just don't play. One thing I thought was just sort of interesting to talk about was if Miami would have been a better matchup against Golden State. I don't think so, but you see this all the time when a team wins or loses, and then they make it far. It's like, well, I know they won, blah blah blah, but I think they would have matched up better than this team. Marcus Smart said it in 2018, or he said it recently about 2018, how that Celtics team would have matched up better with Golden State than Cleveland. And I mean, the stats are kind of there to back it up. Kirk Goldsberry of ESPN said that Boston is the only team with a winning record against Golden State since Steve Kerr took over as head coach in 2014-15. Because Golden State hasn't had a lot of answers for the wings that Boston has in Brown and Tatum. Smart has generally done a great job guarding Curry, as good as one can do. And no, he did not have a dirty play on Curry. We're going to be hearing that for the next couple days. There's no storyline. He dove for a loose ball, and he dove better than Curry did. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Dan. Everyone's always talking about that for no reason.
It's just this narrative around Marcus Smart. People just like bashing on him, even those shots that he was taking in that Game 7 the other day. I could see why people said they were bad shots, but he's open. He's a decent 3-point shooter, so I feel like you give him those shots. But like I said, I think there's a widespread hate for Marcus Smart. I think he's good.
I agree. I think he's grown so much this year too, just with Ime and the turnaround that the Celtics have had, and just the defensive presence that he offers. It's not just like the active hands, but it's the off-ball positioning. I saw a fantastic TikTok about that, just analyzed where he was throughout an entire play, and it was against the Bucks, and he just forced it to. I forget the exact things, but it was just so smart and so second nature. No pun intended there, but of where he positioned himself to get the perfect defensive play.
One thing I like about Marcus is, well, depending on the scenario, he's very decisive in his shooting. He knows that based off of the shot clock or where he is on the court or how the play is developed, if he gets the ball wherever he is, he needs to shoot it, and he can usually get it in rhythm, and that's how he hits some of these sort of improbable threes. My issue with Marcus is where he starts shooting the threes with 16 seconds left on the shot clock because he gets the ball coming up the court. He goes around some screen and he finds himself open and he's like, yeah, this is what I want to do with the possession. I want to take this wing 3 off the dribble moving left. I'm like, no, Marcus, that's not the
Then he
right
makes like one out
scenario.
of every 3 of them. And you're like, oh my god.
He's one of the classic like no yes sort of players.
Yeah.
You watch in the air, you're like, oh, what a terrible shot. Okay, it went in, but it's still a terrible shot.
Yeah.
That's what kind of made it hard for me to enjoy that game as a Celtics fan. The game ended, but I was sitting there like, man, we played like crap.
Yeah.
Speaking of someone that's like hard to watch, Derek White. Like,
Wow.
what's going on? You know, he's shooting like he's Derek Curry now. No more Grant Curry, Derek Curry. And like, and then, you know, he passes it across the top of the key to Tatum, just gives it away to Jimmy Butler. Like, I don't understand, you know, he's really good at getting in the sets, and then he's just not thinking sometimes or overthinking it and just has like an easy bad turnover.
I know I forget who it was that told him this. Maybe it was White that relayed this message, but all of his teammates went to him and be like yeah, like shoot it or like do what you need to do. Like you were brought to this team for a reason. We want you to succeed. It's intimidating coming into this scenario, not because you're playing with LeBron or something like that, with a real intimidating situation, but because you're playing with a really well established culture, and Smart and Horford and Tatum Brown know how to play off each other secondhand, and Grant Williams acts like he can do that as well. So it's tough to go, and especially as a guard, as a guy who has the ball and has a lot of responsibilities, getting players into sets and getting good looks. I think he's done a good job adjusting, but yeah, he has like 3 or 4 plays a game where he's wide open for a 3, and you know he doesn't want to shoot it because he immediately dribbles into the paint, and then he gets lost and he throws it back out, throws it right to like Jimmy Butler.
But I think it was funny. Jeff Van Gundy was talking about how much he likes Derek White, and like right when he said that, he just like throws it out of bounds or something like that. It's like, ah.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, but I think the Celtics benefited from no Mike Breen being there last night, because you know there would have been no one to call the bang if Jimmy Butler gets that 3, and so therefore he didn't hit it.
Yeah. Wow. What a great point. Mark Jones is a professional. When I saw that Breen wasn't, obviously I was a little despondent. But Mark Jones he's a professional, and he really fits seamlessly. And really, the two of them and Brian Anderson are other than Mike Gorman, a little biased, are some of my favorite play-by-plays. Obviously, at the national level, I think Brian Anderson is fantastic. I really one thing I had an idea with. I was wondering what you guys think about this. If like ESPN/ABC and Turner should have like a finals rotation, like how the Super Bowl is traded off between networks. If like every other year, like Turner should get a crack at it, because I think they could learn from each other. It'd be good competition to elevate their broadcast, because sometimes I think ESPN we've talked about this before, especially with the cutting of the replays, they get a little lazy, and it's just not the best product. And Turner does a great job in everything they do with inside the NBA, with all their All-Star game coverage, and all that. They do really great stuff. So I'd like to see them get a crack at the top tier product. What do you guys think?
I mean, I agree. I don't know if you noticed, like Van Gundy and blanking on the third commentator's name.
Mark Jackson.
Mark Jackson, yeah, it was Mark Jones and Mark Jackson. Van Gundy and Jackson were fighting on TV, on national television. They're arguing about certain players and things. Yeah, and it's just like that's not what you're there for. Like it was very obviously about them and what they thought. And you know, I think it's like with sometimes when like some of the former coaches and players, I don't know exactly how they got to commentating, but they have like almost like a fall from grace because they were in a position that was better, and then they got fired from their head coaching job, and now they're doing commentating. I don't know. It was just not fun to listen to them because they weren't talking about the game. They were just like trying to measure their you know what's and on national television. So that was my personal thing. I was kind of disappointed when I realized it would just be ESPN again for another 7 games. What do you think, Dan?
For me, I really liked the coverage of Kevin Harlan, Stan Van Gundy. and Reggie Miller. And my hope for the NBA Finals is that we see Kevin Harlan, because I feel like no one makes it more exciting without being annoying than him. And just like I just love his calls, and I want to see him out there.
One thing I have to say about Kevin Harlan, it's really funny when it's like January, middle of January, some like regular season game, and Kevin Harlan comes on and he's like, Pistons, Suns coming next. And I'm like, okay, calm down, bro. Like, Suns are going to win by 40, right?
Intensity's always up there. I love it.
He's a gamer. He shows up every night.
They should have Eric Collins come in, the Hornets play-by-play guy.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, it'd be so much fun.
If you had him over the course of a series, he'd probably come up with all kinds of wild nicknames and stuff for the different guys, right?
He would lose his voice.
Yeah, and what I like about him, I watched a lot of the Hornets broadcast illegally. I mean, not illegally.
You've supported the Hornets, yeah?
I supported the Hornets, yeah. And he's obviously done research on the other players, on the other team. And he has like fun things for them too, you know? It's not like a one-way broadcast. I think he'd be very good for like national television, although I wouldn't want him to leave the Hornets. But, you know, just good golly, Miss Molly, like, I don't know. It's always something weird and unexpected, but it keeps you engaged.
They could do a structure like the Nets do. The Nets have like 3 broadcast teams, but I mean they have a main one with Iron Eagle. But obviously Iron Eagle does NFL, he does college basketball, and he does I believe he's the second, like basically the second crew for TNT. I mean Mike Breen does Knicks games, but he also does ESPN. So there could be a way if Eric Collins he could get a gig. He could be honestly, if they need an energy guy, TNT after Kevin Harlan retires, he could be like a natural fit there.
Yeah, that'd be
if
cool.
He wanted to do it. That's a lot of travel, but for guys that love the game and want more exposure and be able to cover some of these different matchups, I think it's an exciting opportunity. One last thing on sort of a little bit of a preview. We're going to get into X factors later, an X factor we think for each team. What do you, Dan, I have this question for you. What do you think about the different defenders that Golden State can throw at Boston? Like they can throw Wiggins, Moody, Kuminga, Otto Porter, Clay, maybe Gary Payton second. He's, I believe, questionable to play in Game 1 on Thursday. What do you think about the different looks that they can throw at those 2 main guys for Boston?
I think it's great. I mean, Moody, Kuminga, these young guys in Game 4 and 5 of the Mavs series, they look like vets. I mean, there was obviously that comeback, but these guys have improved so much, and they're learning from guys like Draymond, Iguodala. Like, these are great defenders, obviously. And even someone like Otto Porter Jr., and then obviously coming back, Gary Payton. The second, and Bielitsa. I feel like people forget that a few years ago, a lot of teams were trying to get Bielitsa, and he did a good job against Luka in Game 5, guarding him. And there was this argument that was going around Twitter that he was too unathletic and too slow to bite on the pump fakes that Luka was doing, so it actually translated into good defense. I don't know about that, maybe, but yeah, I think they have a lot of good defenders, like you said, that they can throw at the Jays. I think it's just going to be a great, back and forth matchup.
It'll be a lot of great adjustments throughout the series because I think Udoka and Kerr are really good at not only making like X and O's adjustments, but they're really good at knowing what the team needs, like from an emotional standpoint. And part of it is they've both been players. Obviously, Kerr with a little more success as a player in terms of teams he's been on. They've both been through the San Antonio system and learned from the best there. I don't really think I've seen Kerr and Udoka interact. I'm sure they know each other. Everyone knows each other. That's just sort of how it works. But I'm excited to see all the battles that really happen because I know Tatum and Draymond have a lot of respect for each other, but they won't hold anything back on the court. There might be some animosity.
Subway commercial, right?
Yeah. Wait. Yeah. What commercial is it?
Yeah, it was a Subway commercial.
Oh yeah. That was a great commercial.
I forget what the line was.
Oh my gosh, it was a big meme.
Yeah.
Duncan, we used to talk about that commercial all the time.
Yeah, I can't remember. Something about bacon?
Oh
Right?
yeah, oh yeah. It's like mine is bacon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Tatum's opened up a little bit more. I remember his first when he was a rookie, he had a commercial with like a local donut like place around New England. And he was like, I'm Jason Tatum and I love a good cup of coffee. And now you see those Ruffles commercials. He has a little more
Yep.
personality. I think it's good because he's like benefits the league, but he's not that personable as opposed
Yeah.
to I don't know Steph.
Yeah, yeah. I think I get so many Deuce like memes on
Mhm.
my on my TikTok page, and it's just like a picture of Jimmy Butler and Deuce, and it's like Jason Tatum's sons playing together, like something like that. It's just a good time.
I wonder if Deuce and Cannon will have a play date. That's Steph's son.
I actually saw, you know, you might have seen some of the TikToks if you're on NBA TikTok. They're like, "Oh, who is better all time?" This they'll have like I don't know, like Shaq and another center there, and it's
Hakeem.
like rebound. Yeah, Hakeem. They'll be like rebounding, and they'll go Shaq, and it was just like
Oh,
all
I
that,
know
but it was
those.
like all Deuce over Cannon, and it was like swimming, and it's Deuce swimming in Miami, and like all that.
Yeah, yeah, he did say he was good. I don't think he was at Game 7 though. I saw nothing around of him after the game.
Mm.
Tatum seemingly didn't post anything. I think he stayed home for that one.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah, I recently rewatched The Last Dance, and just had me thinking about just how much better the finals or the 7 game series like travel system is now, like having two away, two home, two away, and then 1-1-1 versus 2-3-2. I mean, it's more travel, and it really doesn't work when they play every other day. But other than that, just like I feel like it was weird some of those series that Jordan had. He played 3 games in Salt Lake City or something like that, and it almost gives an advantage to the away team. If they split one, then they have 3 in a row.
that's the whole thing with the 2-3-2.
Yeah,
Because if you split the home 3 in a row, you could pull it off. It's a little crazy. This is a better system.
Yeah.
yeah,
And besides, in the finals, you're gonna have a. I looked. There are like 2 off days in between every game,
Mhm.
except games 3 and 4 in Boston. Um,
Yeah.
in fact,
that's
game
good.
game 4 in Boston on my birthday. Very exciting. I will not be
Ooh.
there.
Ah,
They're
go
like,
to a watch party in Boston. That'd be cool.
I could. I mean, tickets are $1,000, so I will not
Oh,
be at
not
the
bad.
game. But yeah, we'll get more into the X factors we have for each team coming up after the break. Okay, coming back from the break, we're going to get into X factors for each team, like what they need to do in order to win the series or something they just need to keep in mind, either coming off a last series or just dealing with this new opponent. Duncan, you can start off.
Yeah, sure. So for the Celtics, it's the turnovers. It's about because it's really momentum killers, just stopping the turnovers and also like playing to the refs a little bit. I think that's something they kind of struggled with. They get a lot of calls against them, and whether they were the right calls or not, I don't know. But then they kept on doing the same things, like being overly aggressive on defense, or even though your arms are straight up, they've been calling it, so back off a little bit. It's just adjusting to the refs, which not huge adjustments, but little adjustments. Yeah, Derek White. Yeah, he can't start off the game with turnover. He loses all of his momentum. And also, don't let the Warriors see that you're tired. Sometimes in that Miami game, although Ime took in Game 7 took them out when they had the lead, like took some of the starters out. It seemed like they were still tired when they came back in, and they were just begging the Heat to come back. So I think kind of going through that, don't let them see that you're tired, and maybe Ime part of that is changing the rotations a bit, and in the first couple of games not giving like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown like 45 minutes. Not that I don't exactly know how many minutes they've been having, but it seems like 43 plus. Um, I mean, it
Yeah,
is playoffs.
I think they were lower to or closer to the low 40s.
Yeah,
But obviously, I think with Draymond and Steph, like they are killers, and they will seek out whatever is weak, which is smart and it's how they win. But I think that's really important. So do you think Golden State really has to basically capitalize off some of those Boston things, like force them into turnovers, and then obviously in transition, Golden State can get a lot of good threes and on stuff like that.
yeah. I think. I mean, the strong point in this series, it's going to be Boston's defense against Golden State's offense. I don't know which one is better. But on the other hand, I think that Boston's offense is better than Golden State's defense. So they're really going to have to, not that they're a horrible defensive team, but they're going to have to capitalize on those turnovers, pressure Derek White, smother Jaylen Brown when he gets in the paint. That way he can, Jaylen Brown in the paint, he doesn't have the best handle or decision making when he's down there. So when Jaylen Brown's off the ball, don't let him take those deep, uncontested threes to get him going, and then force him into the paint where it'll be harder for him to finish.
Yeah, certainly Jaylen Brown. He was a lot better in the last couple of games, being a lot more decisive and
sure.
taking the looks that were given to him. One thing I have for Boston is really being able to manage these shooters in a couple different ways. I think getting around screens is really important. One thing they always put they always put Smart on guys who were going around a lot of screens because he's their best guy in avoiding screens. And then they pivoted to putting like Jaylen Brown on Max Strus, and he was very effective, but I think he had one or two times where he like fouled a 3-point shooter. So I think what's really important is being able to defend and affect airspace without fouling. It's even more prevalent for Golden State because Curry and Poole are like the best 2 free throw shooters in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And giving those guys free opportunities, especially when Poole has struggled to get going a little more as of late, you can't give either of those guys the opportunity to start seeing baskets going in at the free throw line and to get momentum. And obviously, it's not been an issue for Boston with getting guys in foul trouble, really. Like, there hasn't been, like, I know Lowry fouled out and Strus fouled out the other game. But Boston hasn't had those issues. But if you start doing stuff like that, you will. Dan, I was just wondering what you had for Golden State's keys, because we've sort of focused more on Boston so far.
Yeah, for Golden State, I think it's crunch time execution. I think Steve Kerr is one of the best at drawing up plays off of inbounds, and just the way they manage late game situations with the experience they have with Steph, Clay, and Draymond directing the offense, dribble handoffs, that kind of stuff. I feel like that's going to be one of the crucial points of this series and this final because the Celtics have struggled closing out games. They've blown a few leads here and there. And yeah, I think that's one of the main points and something they could capitalize on if they're smart.
I think that's a really good point, too, because the Celtics defense sort of got better throughout the course of Game 7. In the last couple of minutes, the Miami's half-court offense was not great. They had some good looks, like Strus coming off a screen and having a really tough fadeaway 3 or some transition stuff. But in the half-court, in the last, 5 minutes, the Celtics defense was really, really solid. And so Golden State being able to capitalize down the stretch, too, that's obviously the best matchup unit to unit. Celtics defense, Warriors offense. That's the one everyone will be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it'll be interesting then on the other half. Golden State's defense gets really overlooked, but they're a really solid unit. I believe they were one of the top by defensive rating or whatever, opponent field goal percentage, whatever metric you want to use. And we've talked about it ad nauseum. Boston, their half-court offense has struggled in late-game situations. They've been sloppy with turnovers at times and getting bad shots in the beginning of the shot clock. So that's sort of like the under, not the under, it's like the dark horse, if you want to say, for a matchup storyline to be looking at.
Yeah, and with regards to turnovers, the Warriors have also been a bit sloppy with the ball, but they've tidied things up recently. And even though the Warriors are so experienced, it just shows that turnovers, stuff like that, it's kind of hard to avoid. And I think the Warriors will need to keep a good hold on the ball, and same with the Celtics.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. That makes me think of Game 7 of the Celtics, just how many fast break points that Boston had. It's just those turnovers, it'll be important for both teams to capitalize off of the turnovers. But I don't have the stats up in front of me. I think the Warriors probably have more turnovers on average, but their high 3-point percentage and big 3-point volume usually makes up for that, and that's why they're able to win so many games regardless of the turnovers. Yet, however, it might not be the case if Boston has a high percentage on converting those turnovers to buckets.
Part of the way Golden State plays too, sort of flashy with some of their passing and making the extra pass, it can end up biting them. I know it's 6 years ago, but in 2016, Game 7, it's in the last couple minutes. The Cavs are rotating over. They a little late on the rotation. Clay's open in the corner. Curry does like a behind the back pass to him, and it goes out of bounds. Really important possession. I think the final score of that game was like 93-87, so you needed the points. So it is the way they play, but they know how to play well, obviously, Golden State, and play smart, and they played some of the most beautiful basketball we've seen in terms of making the extra pass and being selfless. But they're going to have to reel it in. Now, this isn't something I have in the notes, but I'm going to put you guys on the spot for your finals predictions.
Ooh.
For me, I'll start while you guys can figure yours out. I'm going to have Boston in 7. Because it's like they said after Game 7 against Miami, they don't make things easy. It'll be a long series. It'll be a lot of adjustments. Both teams will lose at home, and defense wins championships. I'll just defer to Boston, and obviously in 7 because it's just crazy, and it'll be a really good, tough, long series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might have to mirror that. I think I also think it'll go to 6 or 7 games. Split the first 2, so it'll be tied 2-2, and whether I think Boston will win in 6 or in 7. I got the stat up, and the Warriors are second in the league in turnovers per game, right behind the Houston Rockets with 14.9 turnovers per game. And I wish I could get the Boston like fast break points per game, but they're pretty high up there.
Yeah.
And nothing's going to be free in this series. They're going to have to fight for everything. So it's going to be in 7 games, and I think it will be Boston.
Okay. I'm going to go the other way. I'll take Golden State in 6 games.
Oh, no. Don't do it to me like that.
I think Gary Payton coming back is huge, and same with Otto Porter Jr. coming back. I think I would lean towards the Warriors just with experience, everything in general. But yeah, I'm just hoping for a good series. Hopefully everyone can be healthy, and hopefully the fatigue isn't a huge factor because, like Peter said earlier, they have around 2 days of rest between each game. And although the Celtics have had a really difficult road up to this point, they're going to be tired, but they're younger, and I think they'll be ready to have a go at the Warriors. And yeah, and like we said in the previous episode, it's 2 great stories. Warriors coming back from huge injuries from Steph and Clay, Draymond partially injured, them drafting and taking chances at young guys that other teams kind of passed up on. And then we have the Celtics. They had struggled with Marcus Smart, and the Jays brought Al Horford back, who seemed a bit washed up when he was briefly on OKC, I think it was. I don't even remember.
Yeah, he was sort of cast off, sent to the outer rim out there in Oklahoma City.
And then them making a move for Derek White, bringing him in, getting him acclimated. I think it's just going to be a great series, a great matchup. And the question I have is, do you think the Celtics are the best matchup for the Warriors thus far? Or do you think it was a previous team that they played?
So, yeah, 100%. Golden State's kind of cakewalk because so they played Dallas, who I don't even think's that good outside of Luka. Like, they have good players, but they don't have that extra piece to put them over the edge. They don't have a Jaylen Brown. They don't have a Bam. They don't have anyone like that. And then before then they played. Who did they play?
The Grizzlies.
Memphis.
Okay, they played Memphis, who
I think if Ja were healthy during that series, it would have been a little closer. But yeah,
they still seem like they're like a year or two away from really being there, and without Ja, it was a different series. And then in the first round, they played. Boy, why am I blanking on everything? They played the 6th seed, which
The Nuggets.
okay, they played the Nuggets, which was
Yeah.
just Jokic with no one else. Like I counted on my hands like how many Hall of Famers Boston had went through, and if you go through, like in Brooklyn, they went through Kyrie, Kevin. I can cheat and say Steve Nash, Blake,
Blake Griffin.
probably Blake, probably LaMarcus. So there's
Yeah.
5,
Yeah.
and then for Milwaukee, you have Giannis. Middleton and Holiday are not really. They're not like
Yeah.
quite there. They're fringe sort of. This is the way basketball Hall of Fame works. It's kind of easy to get in. Then Miami, Spoelstra, Jimmy Butler, Haslam. No, I'm joking. Maybe depending on how things go, maybe Lowry, probably not. And then you're running into Golden State, which will have Curry, Draymond, probably Clay and Kerr. You could make an argument for Iguodala if you wanted. So there's like 12 Hall of Famers in that run. If let's just finish the exercise for Golden State. What you went through Jokic. I cannot say anything about Memphis. A little early.
No.
For let's just have fun and say Luka.
Yep.
And sure, Jason Kidd. That's 3. And then what? Can you say like Tatum, Brown? I don't know. Not really. Can't say that right now.
Not yet.
Yeah. Well, I think what's tough with that is that the Warriors haven't played a team offense. They've had some great like individuals, and the Mavs. They kind of proved everyone a little wrong. Everyone said it was just the Luka show, and they made it to the conference finals, but still, it was the Luka show a little bit.
Yep.
I guess the Grizzlies are kind of a team offense, but even then they have their obvious star. And although the Celtics have Jason Tatum, like he's like funnily enough not the star of the show off. Like he's definitely the star, but he had a quiet like 18 points at one point, and like I was like, wow, Jason Tatum's done nothing. He still has 18 points. He's there to facilitate the team, and that's what's gotten him good is being that that point forward, facilitating everything.
He has some very quiet games at times, but if they lead to Boston wins, it doesn't matter for him, doesn't matter for the team.
Absolutely.
One thing I will say, Dan, I was very relieved you picked Golden State to a degree because whenever all the pundits have picked Boston, it's not done well. I know Game 6, I think, is as if Miami was down every player, the way everyone's talking about it, which I think was a little silly. I think Miami's way too good. They have way too many gamers. Spoelstra's too good of a coach for them to wilt over and die, like everyone was seemingly expecting.
So do you guys have? Were you gonna wrap up?
Nah. You can talk. We got
just gonna be the last one. Who do you think is gonna be like the dark horse performer in this finals? Like, who do you think is gonna rise to the occasion that you wouldn't have expected?
Andrew Wiggins.
Ooh.
I think he's a team player. Yeah, I don't know. He's the quietest all-star starter.
Well, the way he's been playing lately, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if he kept on going.
It's true.
Well, it's tough for me. It's so weird because like I watch every Celtics game, and so if a certain guy shows up, I'm like, oh, I've seen how this sort of game goes. But I'm just gonna say Peyton Pritchard because he didn't really get a chance to play against Miami because they were switching onto him and bullying him. And he'll probably be able to play against some of these smaller Golden State lineups. And he is someone who is really important for the Celtics as a reliable spacer.
Yeah.
Because they've sort of struggled with finding reliable shooting. Horford is on and off sometimes. Derek White doesn't always shoot. And if he does, it's on and off. But Pritchard is someone who can make deeper ones. He's a decent playmaker off the dribble and someone who can kind of create in late game shot clock situations. So if there's some game where he comes in and he scores like 8 straight points or something randomly, people would be like, "Oh, where's this guy coming out?" Well, it wouldn't be surprising if I saw a bunch of Peyton Pritchard memes all over Twitter.
Awesome.
What about you, Dan?
I was also thinking about Peyton Pritchard. But I want to think of someone from the Warriors. I was having trouble. I'll probably just go with Looney, just because he's surprised a lot of people. I hope he does well this series. Yeah.
If I go with the Warriors, I feel like I'd go Kuminga because that dude's just so raw and athletic. He'd be a guy you don't really game plan for, and he comes in and just disrupts the game by going towards the rim or making some jaw-dropping plays. This is a really weird comparison, but it reminds me of in Super Bowl 49, Patriots Seahawks. At the end of the first half, the Seahawks bring in this big receiver. I don't even remember his name because he had like never played before. He's like the 6'4" guy. They bring him in. They just throw lobs to him down the sideline. He catches them every time. You're like, where'd this guy come from? And so then they have to change all their corner alignments around. Then that leads to Malcolm Butler coming in at the end of the game. It all works out. But it's just, this sort of big athletic guy comes out of nowhere. You're like, what? Who is this dude? Like, he's making these jaw-dropping plays.
Yeah.
Like, why hasn't he played? Like, this guy looks like the best player in the world.
You don't think Luke Cornett's going to be that guy for you?
No, the Green Cornet doesn't get a lot of playing time. No, it'd be the German Hammer all day.
Maybe Daniel Tice, he wins Finals MVP.
I hope. You'd probably some great odds for that. I'll bet on Daniel Tice, Finals MVP.
I hope it's Al that not wins Finals MVP, but like it's a great story. How many 146 playoff games before making it to the finals or something like that. Like, I don't know. I just hope he performs at like kind of what we saw in some of those Milwaukee games and in some of those Miami games. And just I don't know how far he is from retirement, but it would be a great way to kind of bookmark or end some of his career.
I think he's played historically well against Golden State whenever he's been with Boston. So I'd expect good things out of Al.
I wonder what he's going to be like next season, if he's going to have the legs to have another run at it with these guys.
Well, I was thinking about this earlier. Depending on how it goes, he'll be on, I believe, an expiring. He would be the oldest by far player on a somewhat young Celtics team. I don't know if there'd be a way to flip that contract into some younger pieces. That would make more sense. The Celtics don't have a lot of assets because they are missing some first round picks due to swaps or just stuff in other existing deals. So, if there's a deal that they could make to bring in like another a guy who can stretch the floor at a bigger position that's maybe more on the timeline of Tatum Brown. John Collins has long been rumored to the Celtics, more in a Jaylen Brown deal because Jaylen's from Atlanta and they need that second defensive wing next to Trae Young. Jaylen Brown makes perfect sense. And then the other one I was thinking of was Tobias Harris, but I don't think Boston would want to pay him that much. I don't know why Philly would want Al Horford again. 3-teamer in there. I don't know. I don't think they can rule out any options if they're really committed to trying to extend this thing going with the Jays. Then Al Horford could be on the block. Wow. I didn't think this is how it's going. We do this. I talk about what we're getting for Al Horford. Here we are.
I'm kind of sad, not gonna lie.
Big Al.
I was so sad when Al left the first time. I was like, really? You loved Boston. They're going to Philly? But they gave him the bag. Respect to Al getting the bag.
Yeah, and you see the contract that he signed in Philly gave him a $6 million bonus for making the finals, and there'll be a $7 million bonus if they win. Yeah,
that's big time. I know Jaylen Brown is a big bonus too.
Nice.
I think if they won, they'd go over the tax. So some people were like, "Oh, we can't pay the tax," and I'm like, "All right."
I think it might be worth it a little bit.
I'll pay the tax. I won't because it'd be millions of dollars, but I would in their shoes. Well, wrapping things up for this episode, let's go over last week's Q&A and poll. Or Q&A, as always, these are on Spotify. So if you listen to us on Spotify in the app, these will be in every episode, so you can respond and hear your answers read live. Or if you don't want them read, I guess you can write in the description, like, don't read my answer or don't say who I am. Otherwise, I will. The Q&A was, who will be the next American to win MVP? It's something I talked about. I thought Trae Young was an interesting dark horse in this. But our own co-host, Garrett Collins, said Jason Tatum. No surprise there, coming from Garrett. And it kind of seemed like the obvious pick. And then for our poll, who made the best team? So again, we made these fun lineups, drafting the best players left in the conference finals. So that'd be players from the Mavericks, Heat, Celtics, and Warriors. Just as a refresher for those teams, we do have a graphic for them available on our Instagram, or you can just listen to the last episode. Daniel's team, it goes Kyle Lowry, Luka Doncic, Andrew Wiggins, Dorian Finney-Smith, Bam Adebayo, Jalen Brunson, Andre Iguodala, and Davis Bertans.
What a team.
He had the number one pick in the snake draft. Yeah, what a team. My team was Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Draymond Green, Kevon Looney, Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero, and Grant Williams. And then Duncan's team was Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Jimmy Butler, Robert Williams, Al Horford, Spencer Dinwiddie, Victor Oladipo, and PJ Tucker.
Filthy.
It's So the votes on Spotify were 2 votes for me, 1 vote for Duncan. But on Instagram, people were a little heated in the comments. Dan, you vouched for your team in the comments. Latvian Laser, of course, being on the fake Latvian Laser. Of course, it's all about Luke Kennard. But it does seem like it was kind of split between me and you, Duncan.
I mean, we just gotta, Peter. You've got your PlayStation. Make 2 2K teams and let them sim each other.
Yeah, I might do it. I'll give myself I'll be the Celtics because I have like 4 Celtics. You actually have the most balanced team in terms of representation because I have 4 Celtics, 3 Warriors, and a Heat.
Yeah, I just have the best player from every team.
Yeah, you have. Oh, do you have Luka? No. All right. Do you have Tatum? No.
Hey, whoa! I've got Al Horford on my team. Whoa.
Hey, I've got the best players from every team. I've got Grant Williams and Kevon Looney and Tyler Hero. So
I'm gonna take Peter's team in 6 games.
6. Wow.
It's going to that PJ Tucker pick. No,
I mean,
it
worked for the lineup.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Actually, if I was thinking about this, if I could like change one pick with a player who is like not drafted, I think I would take out either Poole or Hero. I've been thinking about who I'd want out. I think I'll take out Jordan Poole and put in Derek White because I want a little more defense at the guard position because you can't play Poole and Hero together.
True.
Fair.
Actually, yeah. I'll see if I can get them in like a playoff series, 8-man rotation, and see who wins.
It'll be great TikTok content. There you go.
It would.
Oh yeah, people love that sort of stuff.
And whoever wins that matchup plays me in the finals up against Iguodala.
Or you have the bye.
I would buy.
I think either team would sweep your team in 4. Although I think 2K loves Luka, so I think you'd stand a fair chance.
There you go.
You can't miss.
Yeah, so if you want to engage in all this fun, exciting content, again, listen to us on Spotify. We can answer the Q&A in the poll, as well as follow us on Instagram at 7 seconds or more. It's also in the description of this and every episode. So yeah, wrapping up. Dan, thank you for coming on as always, and Duncan again coming on as always. I don't know why I scratched myself at that time. But yeah, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.